All right, welcome everybody. This is Randy with RealMMAnews.com. This is podcast number 3. And today we're going to cover several topics. We're going to keep it short as always. We're going to talk about Jon Jones being a dumbass and going to jail and getting out of jail and just all the shenanigans he's pulling. We're going to talk briefly about the Albuquerque Police Department because they are some shady bastards. We're going to talk about UFC 200 and what that card's looking like. They've added some more fights just a couple hours ago. We're going to talk briefly about Paige Van Zant. We are going to look at your viewer emails, viewer questions, and your comments. I'm going to answer some of your questions. And remember, we are giving away signed UFC gloves the next couple of weeks. All you have to do is like us on Facebook, like this video, share this video, like us on Twitter, and you are eligible. We'll ship that out at no cost to you. So we're giving away some free shit. So let's jump right into it. First thing I want to cover is Jon Jones, because got a lot of questions on Twitter about that, what we think of that. If you don't know Jon Jones, he's on probation for felony hit and run. He hit a pregnant lady and then, took off, fled the scene. Basically, he hired some good lawyers, got out of that. A couple weeks ago, got a speeding ticket, 75 thing in the world, but turns out he didn't have his license and insurance in there. They kind of let that go. And then late last week, he got pulled over for quote-unquote drag racing, revving his engine. Within 20, he released the body cam video of Jones basically arguing with the cop, being an asshole, calling the cop a pig, telling him he's disgusting. The cop obviously knew who he was. Basically said the feeling was the cop was a dick too. And, in a vacuum, that's not, that unusual. Celebrities, especially in towns where you're easily recognizable. Jon Jones is a 6'4" black guy in Albuquerque driving a pimped out, I think it was a Cadillac or a Ferrari, some kind of sports car that stood out. He's already had several run-ins with the law. And he continues to do dumb shit. For as smart as this guy is inside the cage, he gets behind a 16-year-old punk. And I love Jon Jones. He's the best fighter in the world. Best fighter we've ever seen. Highest fight IQ in that cage. I think he's going to probably finish DC if he makes it to the fight. But outside the cage, he makes such poor decisions. So basically, after the traffic stop, he went on Helwani's MMA Hour, tried to get in front of the PR disaster, gave his side, and, a few hours later, the DA issues a warrant for his arrest to revoke his probation. So Jones got to sit in a cell by himself for 2 days waiting to go before a judge. Sounds like Jones's attorney dealt with the DA. So today when they went into court, the judge issued new rules. Basically, Jon Jones' probation still stands. They added 60 hours of additional community service. Jones is not allowed to drive without permission from his parole officer, or his probation officer. And if he gets any more infractions, the judge is going to lock his ass up. And I'm paraphrasing some of that. You can look up the details. But basically, that judge is giving him one more damn chance. Why Jones even has a license after a DUI in New York and then a felony hit and run and then speeding tickets, it's mind-boggling. Everybody else, you don't have a license after you get a DUI. You don't have a license after you commit a felony hit and run. But he's got money. He's a celebrity, so like it or not. But why people around Jones are not smacking him upside the head and saying, "Quit fucking driving, you idiot," it's mind-boggling. It really is. He's doing stupid shit. Jones basically said on Helwani's show that he thinks he's being targeted, and he probably is. That's entirely feasible. I'm not surprised at all. Let me give you some history on the Albuquerque Police Department. Luke Thomas talked about this on his podcast and again today on the MMA Beat. Albuquerque PD has been sued multiple times for assaults, for unlawful shootings, for not making body cam videos accessible. So they had the ability to delete footage from their body cams at will. They lost a lot of those court cases. They're no longer allowed to delete the body cam footage. But they have a documented history of, police brutality, racial profiling, unjustified shootings. Excuse me. They have a horrible reputation. And keep in mind, why do you think that body cam footage of Jones came out less than 24 hours after it happened? Jones wasn't talking about it. It's because the police department, they want the fucking attention. They want to humiliate people, especially celebrities they don't like, and they just want to cause shit. That's just the kind of guys these. I know a lot of cops. A lot of them are great guys. I know some cops that have no business being cops. The kids we used to beat up in high school, because they were narcs or they were just losers or they were thieves. And some of these guys are cops now. We all know not everybody should be a cop. It's a fucked up job. It's a tough job. I have a lot of respect for good cops, I know. But there's a lot of cops that just, there needs to be a deep psychological investigation into anybody that wants to be before they become a cop, because power, guns, that goes to people's head. There's no doubt about that. So the cop that dealt with Jones knew who he was instantly, was an asshole instantly, just unprofessional. He has no business being a cop. Now, nothing's going to happen to that cop. But something should, and something needs to change in Albuquerque. When the Department of Justice investigates you numerous times and issues sanctions or fines, letters basically saying, this kind of shit needs to stop with the racial profiling and police brutality complaints. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's obviously a problem there. That's excuse anything Bones does. He's obviously doing stupid shit for whatever reason. But, there's an issue there. I hope John Jones forces Jackson to train with him, and I hope he moves or something, because nothing good is going to happen in Albuquerque. And that partially depends on, if Jones can mature and get his shit together. Anyway, enough on that. He's super disappointed in Jones, but the fight's still going forward. In less than 3 weeks, he'll be facing DC to get his title back. I believe he's going to win. I think the fight was a good fight, their first fight, but DC obviously is not on Jones's level. DC's now older. Jones is in better shape, seems more focused. At least, his body looks good, all that good stuff. So we'll see. So I'm still looking forward to that fight. And I hope I hope we don't look back in 10 years and wonder what if with this guy. Because I already think he's the greatest, but he's still got work to do. And if he ends up in jail and losing a year or two here or there, we'll never know. Just like Ty lost before he went to prison, it disrupted his career. Same thing with Muhammad Ali. He was out for 2 or 3 years of his prime. Jones is in his prime. It'd be a goddamn shame if they can't get it together. Anyway, let's move on. They announced several fights for UFC 200. We've been on this. And as suspected, the main event is going to be Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. The rematch at 170 pounds. According to Dana White, Conor is obsessed with getting this loss avenged with Nate. And he wanted the exact same conditions, and he wants to make it happen. And the first fight was really good. A lot of people remember the end result, Diaz stuff, but the fight itself was really good. And I think, if Conor, goes back to his normal movement and not trying to headhunt and just throwing haymakers constantly, it's a different fight. And it is what it is. I wish they weren't doing this rematch right now. I'd like to see him face Aldo or Frankie, but that's the way it is. So, but overall the card's really good. You got Diaz McGregor as the main event. You got Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar in the co-main event for the interim featherweight title, which is really interesting, since the title holders fighting the same night on the same card and a weight class, 2 weight classes above. It's a weird situation. It's been 4 months since he KO'd Aldo and got the belt. At least something's happening here. Of course, Aldo and Edgar, that's a rematch itself. Aldo won the first one. It was a good fight, but he clearly won. So this will be interesting. It'll be really interesting if McGregor loses. Well, whether or not he wins or loses, I suppose. If he loses, he's got to go down there and solidify the belts again. And if he wins, I wonder if he's going to do that. If he'll just vacate and let the interim title become the main title. So it's interesting. Cain Velasquez versus Travis Brown is going to be on this card. That's a really, really interesting fight. Hopefully Cain can actually make it to the fight. I'll be honest, I don't dislike many fighters, but I do dislike Brown for some of his shenanigans and just his attitude and the woman beating and the adultery. I guess I shouldn't be biased like that, but I'm a huge Ronda fan, so I'm just jealous of anybody that she's in love with. But that should be a great fight. I mean, how can you not like Velasquez versus Brown? And I'm sure that's a number one contender fight. So we'll see what happens. Johnny Hendricks and Kevin Gastelum. Two guys coming off losses. Both guys had weight issues. Hendricks is ranked number 5, Gastelum number 12. So there's a big gap there. Hendricks right now is favored, I think. I don't know what to make of that fight. I think the steroid ban and the USADA testing has really hurt Hendricks and Aldo and several other fighters. But I think it's really obvious with Hendricks. A lot of people are a little nervous about just saying shit like that, but I think he was on roids. Look at the first GSP fight. Look at every fight pretty much after that. He's a different fighter physically, and even the way he fights is very different. Anyway, great fight. Next fight listed on the card is Derek Brunson versus Gegard Mousasi. I'm not a huge Mousasi fan, but after his last fight, he started dropping F-bombs when he was doing interviews and acted like he really was getting serious and showing some emotion, which I think is great. Derek Brunson, he's a hell of a fighter. He's the beast. So that should be a good fight. I favor Mousasi if he really tries. The other fight on this card they announced was Diego Sanchez versus Joe Lozon. Diego won his last fight, looked decent. This is going to be at 155. Lozon, I believe, coming off losing last two out of three. Maybe I could be wrong, but he always brings it. Diego always brings it. Chances are somebody's getting knocked the fuck out, so that should be a fun fight. They also listed Jim Miller and Takanori Gomi on this fight. Not a fan of either guy, really. This is do or die for Gomi, too, but Miller, it's been a while since he's won a fight, and he hasn't looked good in his last several fights, so we'll see how that goes. And today they announced Sage Northcutt is going to be Marin. Sage coming off the quick tap loss, here a couple months back. Enrique's coming off a loss, so we'll see what happens there. Sage should hopefully, win this fight. I'd like to see him get back on track and really grow. I'm a Sage fan. He's young, so it is what it is. They also announced Kat Zingano versus Juliana Pena. That should be a good fight. Juliana, she looked good in her last fight coming back off that horrible knee injury. Kat Zingano, I don't believe she's fought since Rousey. Is that right? No, I think she's fought since then. I need to look. I guess I should have researched. But, she's a beast. Juliana's a beast. I kind of hate to see them fight at this point because we need both those girls to go after, whoever the champ is. And, in this, I'd probably favor Pena. She's younger. She's really working hard. I think she's going to be a champ one day, so, do with that what you will. It's a good card, and that's just the fights they've announced. There's still going to be more fights added to UFC 200, and I see a lot of people bitching about McGregor, why, he needs to defend his belt, and, he's full of this and full of that. But here's the deal, and you can ask Diaz, is that, we have the McGregor effect, essentially. Everybody's getting paid more now. Nate Diaz finally got, a big payday for his first fight, and he's going to get an even bigger payday for this fight. This is going to break all the records. So, you've got to love that. And basically everybody's getting her. He's changing the game, like him or hate him. I don't think he gives a shit, and I don't give a shit. He's helping people. Everybody's bitched about, fighter pay and things like that for years. He's elevated the sport, and you gotta, give him props for that. Even Nate, gave him props for that. These guys are finally making some fucking money, and if they have to fight McGregor to do it, so be it. That's why Anderson Silva's calling out Conor McGregor, because he wants to make big money. The numbers estimated for their first fight, Diaz and McGregor, It was estimated McGregor made about 10 million after pay-per-view points, and made 2 or 3 million after pay-per-view plus their base pay. McGregor got a cool million just for showing up. Diaz got a 500,000 just for showing up, and then they get, 1.5 million pay-per-view buys, and they get, a percentage of that. UFC 200 is probably going to break those records, get 2 million buys. Those guys are going to be, earning, 10 million plus, and other people on that card are going to be, kicking in, and, some of those guys have pay-per-view points in their contract, some don't. But everybody's going to be making money, so we should celebrate that shit. Win or lose, like or love, hate Conor McGregor, he's changing the game in more ways than one, and I kind of get tired of everybody bitching about him because he's good for the sport. He is good for the fucking sport. You don't have to like him, I don't care, but he's good for the sport. He brings new people, he brings new fans, he's fun to listen to. Sure, he talks a lot of shit, but I'd prefer that over Gegard Mousasi, who for the last 5 years hasn't hardly said shit, win or lose. And then they bitch, I'm not getting a title fight, I'm not getting the respect I deserve. Shut the fuck up, win your fight, call people out. Don't give me this, Rogan, everybody asks these fighters after every win, who do you want next? You got somebody in mind, you want to fight the champ, you want to fight the challenger. I'd say 90% of the time, these fucking guys stand in there and say, oh, well, I'll fight whoever Dana and Lorenzo and, the UFC wants me to fight. I'm ready to fight all the time. And why are you even talking if that's all you got to say? Because I don't want to hear that. I want to hear you want to go beat this guy's ass. You want to go beat that guy's ass or girl. For the women fighters, of course, you got to come up with better shit than that. This isn't the NFL, this isn't baseball where your schedules are already set and, the playoff picture is, already set. It's determined by you and fan interest and UFC interest and what's going to make the most money. And we'll get into that in a minute because one of our viewer questions is about the UFC and being sold and making money, and that plays into that. But these fighters just have to understand. You thought with Chael Sonnen people started to understand. McGregor's helped some people understand, but it looks fake. And I don't want people to be fake and, just talk shit just to talk shit trying to mean McGregor. But, at least call out some fighters. At least give us something to be interested in. Otherwise, I don't give a fuck. Do you? I really want to know. So let me know in the comments, what do you think of that? Do these fighters need to step their game up outside of the cage too? Because I think they do. I think that's why everybody loved the Diaz brothers too. They lay down the truth when they're in interviews or in the cage. They don't pull this, I'll just fight anybody, I don't care, I love everybody, it's a great sport. Fuck all that. Give me some excitement. Anyway, enough of my rant. Sorry about that. I promised I'd keep this short. So we got great card for UFC 200. We have several great every card leading up to UFC 200 really looks good. We'll talk more about that in the next episode. I promised I would hit some viewer questions and comments here. And the first comment, let me look here, is from Kyle Buster. Do you think Conor can beat Nate in a rematch? If so, how? Yeah, Conor can beat him. He was beating him in round one. I think if Conor fights like he has been fighting previous to the Diaz rematch, he can definitely win it. Diaz can also win it. In the first fight, I had money on Diaz and Tate because I like to do parlay bets, but my heart really thought Conor would win. And I love Nate. I've been a Nate and Nick fan since I started watching this sport. He could definitely win. I don't know if he will. I think the weight is a big issue. Diaz is a lot bigger than him. He's a lot bigger. He's got cardio for days. He's got excellent boxing. And if he goes anywhere on the ground, Conor's in trouble. Conor's not horrible at jiu-jitsu. A lot of people say, oh, he's exposed, can't wrestle. He's just a fish out of water on the... Not true. That's not true. And I'm not going to get into that here. Go check out Luke Thomas on Twitter, and he actually has a whole segment on McGregor's jiu-jitsu. Yeah, he's not Nate Diaz level, but there's a handful of people in the world that's Nate Diaz level and, level, that kind of thing. So, but he can keep it standing. And, still win and still lose. So it's just such a fascinating fight. And go back and watch the first fight. It was a great fight from both guys. So he can definitely win. I think if he does win, I don't think he's knocking Diaz out. He could, I guess, but, if he wins, it's probably a 5-round decision. And if he loses, he's probably getting stopped again, probably submitted on the ground, possibly, TKO'd. It could go either way. It's a tough fight. And right now the odds they're both like minus, I think it was minus 105 for McGregor, minus 110 for Diaz at a lot of places, which means Diaz is slightly favored. But I know when the line opened, McGregor was favored. So we'll just have to see what happens. So thanks for the question. All right, Tyler C. Any news on the UFC sale? Do you want the UFC to be sold? How will that impact the sport? I actually dived into this question on the last podcast. There's always, any billion-dollar company is always looking down the road for an exit strategy. The company is worth billions. They have people that are interested right now. They have a finance investment group interested, and I don't want the UFC to be sold right now because it could easily ruin the whole fucking. Keep in mind the Fertittas and Dana, they have not only a vested interest in this, but they understand the sport. You get a bunch of investors and a board of directors dealing with the UFC, trying to just do matchmaking that's going to sell the most pay-per-views or, get the biggest news coverage, gimmick fights, things like that. It could ruin the fucking sport. It could easily ruin the sport. And I don't think a lot of people are thinking that through. I think this is a bad time as a fan and for the sport to be sold. But if they get a good enough offer, I think they'll sell the damn thing. And I don't know what's going to happen. Do you think, board of directors, investors care who the best MMA fighter is in the middleweight division or the heavyweight division? They don't. Trust me. I spent decades in the corporate world at high levels. They care about the bottom line. They don't give a damn about belts or who's the best this or that. They want to make money every quarter, and if they're not, they're going to do everything they can to make money. So it's a real dangerous proposition for them to sell the UFC. It would be horrible for the sport, in my opinion. So thanks for the question. Let me see the next question. All right. This is from Mike MMA. Do you think Conor should vacate the belt? And I addressed this earlier. Aldo Edgar, UFC 200 is going to fight for the interim belt. I think if his next fight isn't at 145, he needs to vacate for sure. He's got to defend that title. Granted, it's only been 4 months, but they can't stall at a division like that. He obviously likes fighting, at 170 and 155 more, and when he was on the regional scene, he was doing 2 weight classes then. So, and it sounds like, according to his coach, according to him, he's cutting 30 plus pounds just to make 145. He looks like death on the scale, and that's not healthy. That shit's got to stop. So he's got to decide what to do, and he can't just hold up division. So I don't think he should vacate right now. I think he needs to have this rematch, make a shit ton of money. If he loses, he needs to go defend it, win or lose, I guess. Maybe take out Edgar, maybe take out Aldo again. I think he beats those guys. He can comfortably vacate and go after 155. So that's my answer there. Thanks for the question, Mike. All right, guys, I'm going to stop it right there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all the support again. Please like this video and share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, share it on, any of your social media. Be sure and follow us at Real MMA News on Twitter. I am at Randy Lehman on Twitter. We are, Real MMA News on Facebook. And, of course, subscribe to this channel. And keep in mind, we're giving away signed UFC gloves the next couple of weeks. All you have to do is like our video, like us on social media, and you're entered, and we're going to ship those out to somebody. So don't miss out on some free shit. Again, thanks for all the support and love, guys. You guys take care, and we'll do this again.